The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Joseph Sund. Hey, Father.
Good to be here.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Dom.
Folks, I want to start off by talking about some... Let me start off with the usual thing I do, which is talking about another podcast on the network you are sure to enjoy called Pray Station Portable. This is your opportunity to pray the Divine Office or the Liturgy of the Hours with the whole church in the podcast called Pray Station Portable. And you can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/PSP.
That's a fine podcast there.
It is a fine podcast. All right, so as we get started, we have a lot of feedback this week, which is fantastic. I love to get feedback for the show. Our first feedback comes from Teresa, who sent in this email question. She said, my mom asked me a question, and I didn't have a good answer, so I figured I'd pose it to your team. What should one do when one's email address has been compromised? Recently, her fellow choir members said they've been getting spam email from her. She had no idea that this was happening and now isn't sure what to do. I haven't received any spam from her myself, so I didn't realize this was happening. I don't think there's anything in her sent folder. My parents know not to open strange attachments and they ignore things that go to their spam folders. But what else can they do to prevent this? On a related note, what should you do if someone's email being hacked has resulted in your email being put out there for the bad guys to spam? I think I get garbage email sometimes because my email was stolen from someone else's address book. When should someone consider abandoning an email address and getting a new one? What other options are there to remedy these situations? My mother's had her Yahoo email for years and knows that she'll lose a lot if she creates a new email address. Plus, she'd need to transfer her contacts, etc. Any suggestions about how to handle these types of situations? When is the nuclear option necessary? And then how do you keep track of all the sites that use your previous email for logins, verification, etc.? All right, so there's a lot here.
Yeah, this could be a whole episode.
It could.
It could.
And maybe it will be, but I just want to give Teresa a few tips. First,
yeah,
it's entirely likely that your mother's email has not been hacked because it's probably being spoofed, which means they're just making it look like her email is coming from, that the email her friends are getting are coming from her. This is the thing you can do. It's just like the phone calls, you get when you get the all the spam calls on your phone. That's all being spoofed. Those aren't actually coming from those numbers. And it's the same thing with email. It's a problem in email, that verification. They're doing things to try to fix it. I don't want to get into the technical details, but it's still a problem. So that's probably what's happening. Especially if you're not seeing stuff in her sent mail. That would only be if they were actually in her Yahoo, account on the website. So it's possible someone got control of her website, of her email, but it's extremely unlikely. So what can she do? Well, first, let me just ask you guys, what do you think that's the case? What other possibilities am I missing?
Yeah, I think that's very likely. I was going to say you should do the same thing you do when you find a centipede in your house, which is burn it down. Get rid of that email and start a new one. No, I've had the same email address for 23, 25 years now. And who knows how many times it's been spoofed and used. I mean, I don't really use email for anything that important anymore, except for logins and that sort of thing. And I know that particular email address is on the black web is, or the dark web is having blacklisted, and stuff in terms of having been hacked and is out there and stuff. But I've changed my password since then. But no, it's probably being spoofed. There's really nothing you could do about it. Hopefully by now people know not to click on a link even if it comes from somebody and says check out this really great photo of a puppy I found.
Yeah, and the first step is always change your password. I mean, change
Yes.
and if they have actually gotten control, into your email account, changing your password should do it. Especially, as we've said many times, if you use two-factor authentication, which I know is sometimes a lot to ask of people who are not particularly tech savvy, but there's there are tools to help people with this sort of things. But change your password. But you're right, Victor. I've had one of my email addresses for again, like 25 years or something along those lines. Actually, I think it is now 25 years I've had my domain, and it's been out there. And I get emails from people. They look weird. They look suspicious. I don't open attachments, even from people I know, unless I'm expecting it, unless it's something clearly, and if I have any doubt, I'll text and say, hey, did you send me this? So it's usually obvious. Father, you were going to add something too?
Just regularly, I have to give reminders and bulletins that Father will never ask you to pay him in Apple gift cards.
Right.
I prefer cold hard cash delivered directly to my hands. But just to use common sense, if someone's asking you to pay them in Apple gift cards or cashier checks or weird modes of payment,
Bitcoin. Yeah.
If someone's trying to get you involved in Bitcoin, run.
Yeah. No. Even if it's your friend who's actually asking you. No.
Yeah.
But the other thing, you get.
Yeah, I'm your grandson. I've been in an awful car wreck and I need an Amazon gift card to get home or something.
Yeah.
No, I need iTunes to get home. No.
I've been arrested and the police want you to pay bail in an Amazon gift card. Yeah, that stuff is not real. Yeah. So the other thing that she asks is, I'm getting garbage email because my email address was stolen from someone else's address book. Really, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just like with your phone. You have spam filters and all that sort of stuff, which you probably do, like all the major, Gmail, Yahoo, all the email providers out there all have spam filters built in. They still let some get through, but it's the cost of doing business these days. It's just the way it is. One thing I will say, though, for everyone, listen to me very carefully. When you load a new app on your phone and it asks you to give them access to your contacts so they can let all your friends know about this new, or to see if any of them are using it, don't do it. Say no. All right? Because what you're doing is you're giving away the personal information of every single person in your address book. Don't give the apps, unless it's like an address book app, or an email app. Don't give, and even then, you got to be careful of what the app is. Don't give away that information. It's really, that is so valuable to them that they're willing to do whatever it takes to get it. So don't give away your contact information for other people.
I think one other point I would add is when I'm signing up for new services or I'm ordering things online of websites that I'm not going to visit over and over again, the use of disposable email addresses, I believe you can do that through your iPhone now if you pay for it, right?
Yes.
I use Firefox Relay, and I could do that as another pick of the week sometime.
Right.
But there's a lot of different privacy apps that allow you to have a disposable forwarding email address so that if that one is compromised, you can close the door.
Right. If you have Apple iCloud, you can use iCloud. You log in. Sign in with Apple? You can sign in with a alias email address that you can dispose of. But even just having another Yahoo or Gmail or whatever account that you use just for signing up for things, that's not a bad idea. But as for tracking, I would track it the same way you track passwords in a password manager. Just log everything every time you give out your email. If it's important to you, I mean, it's a pain kind of. I mean, even I don't keep track of that stuff anymore. But I try not to give out my email address anyway if I don't have to, because I just hate getting, newsletters and that sort of stuff. So I hope that helps, Teresa, and maybe someone else. If you have further questions, we can maybe do a whole main segment on email security and keeping your email secure. That's probably a good idea to do that.
I think that's a good one to add to the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our next email is very quick. It's a thank you from Cameron, who sent in an email, said, "Thank you to Victor and Dom for the Leatherman multi-tool gift idea. You both inspired me to buy my father-in-law and I Leatherman Wave Plus multi-tools with the bit kits that you suggested for Christmas. You all taught me that I could use this Leatherman tool every day, and I actually do, at the hardware store, with my car, with plumbing, around the house, etc." Yes.
Yeah, that's a really nice one too, the Leatherman Wave Plus. And yeah, it really is like when you go out without it, you start to feel like naked, like you're missing an arm or something.
Yes.
Like, you're like, I don't have my abilities, like my full skill set right now.
I know when
Don't
I go to
leave home without it.
when
right?
I go to the
Yep.
airport, and I have to go through TSA and I don't have it with me because it's a blade, so it's like, oh, I'm feeling naked without my, but if there's nothing else I can do, here, besides spreading the gospel of Jesus, I will also spread the gospel of the multi-tool, that it is, trust me, folks, it is, if you have it, you will find uses for it every single day.
Yeah. Thank you for your feedback.
Yes, thanks. Last bit of feedback comes from Melanie, who's not my wife. Melanie via email. On the recent episode of Secrets of Technology, one of the picks of the week was snap circuits. It might make a good present, but I'm wondering if 5 is too young. Victor, you had a thought on this one.
Yeah. So we've had snap circuits for, as long as they've been around, probably 10, 15 years, because with our various kids. The one it's really connected with is our 10-year-old, and he really got into it, I would say, when he was probably 7 or so. 5 might be a little on the young side, because what you're doing is you're actually creating electronic circuits with resistors, capacitors. There's diagrams in the book, but let's face it, kids aren't going to want to use that. My son, we've collected quite a few sets over the years, and so he'll walk up to me with this like monstrosity that has like 3 battery packs wired into like LEDs and sound chips and everything. And he's like, "Look what I made. I had to use 3 battery packs because it needed so much power. And now it's getting really hot and stuff." And I'm like, that looks really cool. Yeah, I'm really amazed it's doing anything. But yeah, no, it's I would say probably like 7 or 8 would be for the average kid is where I would start to do that. And for 5 building, I would still say like Legos are still ideal at that age, just based on, longevity and there's, if your kids like Mario and Luigi, they have, Lego Mario sets that they can build to have like an electronic component to it. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, that's my input.
What was the Lego sets that they had for a long time that had like, had a motor in it and you could build sets that moved? I don't think they have that anymore, do they?
Yeah, well, Mindstorms and stuff. They have the robotics. Yeah, the EV3, I think, is the one that we have. And our son has been using those since he was also about 6 or 7, putting together the robots as well. But yeah, I'd say 5 is young for that, and it's quite pricey unless you have relatives or in-laws who want to go in on it. But
right.
But definitely, you can't go wrong with Legos. But snap circuits are a lot of fun. But again, in order to kind of get enough components, you have to buy several sets, in my opinion. And so it's kind of more of an investment over time, too.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone, for your feedback. We love to get your feedback, and that was some really good stuff there. I want to move on quickly to our first segment, our main segment, which this came up recently, I think, in some discussions among the panelists about future topics. And someone was talking about bad tech upgrades, like things that upgraded and it was worse than the way it was. And we've encountered that a lot. Right now, my big example of that is Mac OS Ventura. I've had so many problems with this computer running Mac OS Ventura. It is Apple's Vista, I think. So, in fact, I heard someone call it Mac OS Vista. So, we want to talk about some examples of old technology that was replaced by new technology, but the old technology was objectively better. And, let's just talk about some of these and you get the idea as we go through it. Like, Father, why don't you start first? What do you think is some old tech that's still better than new tech in some ways?
Yeah, I've seen all these distraction-free writing apps coming out. And I just kind of laugh at it because, I'm on my MacBook Air and I'm opening a distraction-free writing app. And I'm wondering why I can't be using a notebook, right? But Also, my great collection, I have a lot of smaller, old, early 90s, late 80s computers that were exactly that. The main reason you had them was to type documents. So you had my favorite, right, is my Tandy Model 100. But then you had Alpha Smarts. You had all these different word processors that were cheap and were also distraction free.
They did one thing. They only did one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have Flappy Bird on it. So
right. Yeah.
It's funny because into high school I was writing my papers, and this was into the early 90s on a Commodore 64. I'm printing it out on the dot matrix printer, but that exactly wasn't distraction free because I could always play like Forbidden Forest or something instead of writing it too.
Right.
So yeah.
And it had a very short 4-line display on the Tandy 100 or something like that. So you couldn't. That's another thing people talk about with writing is don't go back. Don't you only concentrate on what's right in front of you, and what you're reproducing is essentially the Tandy 100 basically, which is a lot of fun.
And they're doing e-ink screens to make sure that you're not hurting your eyes when you're writing, which
right.
These early ones already were using, right, the LCD screens that didn't have backlight shining at you.
Right. And, so I mean that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And my first one that I was thinking of was TVs. And I don't even want to need to go back to like, I'm not saying like tube TVs were objectively better. I mean, the modern HD TV, not Coleman Garden, but HD TV 4K is beautiful. I wouldn't want to go back to the old stuff. But what I'm thinking is smart TVs versus dumb TVs. Smart TVs are supposed to be so much better. But what they're doing is the smarts, and I'm using the air quotes, are really just new ways for companies to spy on you and learn all about your preferences and what's going on. And even we had that problem a few years ago where Samsung's microphones in their smart TVs were turned on while people were using it and listening to you. If I have a smart TV, and I'm going to give a suggestion, don't ever connect it to your Wi-Fi. If you want a smart TV functionality, buy a little box, buy a Google Chromecast or Roku or an Apple TV. That's my preferred one. But don't buy smart TVs and turn the smarts on. I think dumb modern TV would be much preferable to me. But this is why TVs are cheap, by the way. This is how they can afford to sell you an 84-inch TV for what a 19-inch TV
$500. Yeah.
What a 19-inch TV cost 25 years ago. So that's my example. Victor, do you got one that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, kind of in the same vein. I'm going to be that guy today and talk about like streaming media versus physical media. And I think streaming media is great. I have it, I use it. We watch, YouTube together as a family. We watch, Netflix, various, Amazon Prime, but at the same time, we have series that we'll revisit, we'll watch the entire series as the different kids kind of age into them. And then it's a chance for the older kids to kind of rediscover them. We just rewatched over the past couple of weeks the entire original, Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Nickelodeon animated series from the early 2000s, which the older kids had seen, but the younger kids hadn't. And now it seems like it's on Netflix, but at the time I couldn't find it. I went to a site called justwatch.com where you just type in the name of the movie and it shows you where you can see it for subscription, free, or pay for it. It wasn't, it looked like I would have had to have joined HBO Max or something. But we had the Blu-rays, so I pulled out the Blu-rays, very good, sound and video quality, popped into the Blu-ray player. Like I said, our 10-year-old was the disc changer whenever we needed to change a disc. It's always helpful to have one of those.
Yes.
And we were able to, watch the entire series that way. And it's something that, we're going to revisit, from time to time. We'll hold on to it, but there's nothing, another series, we're going through a Richard Dean Anderson phase, and he was in Stargate SG-1, which, we do the podcast on, but also MacGyver. We watched all of MacGyver, and he did a series in the middle called Legend, and it's not available anywhere, but you can I think you can buy each individual episode individually, but the DVD was $7 of the entire series was $7 on Amazon. And granted, it only ran 12 episodes because it was kind of an eclectic show. It was him and John Delancey, who plays Q on Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
But it's an interesting show. And so we've been watching through that too. And that's something that we'll have. So if you have the physical space for it, I think physical media for something that, you think you might want to revisit. And it's really an opportunity too, to be more intentional about your viewing and what you share with people as well. It's not like, I'll just stream whatever, Netflix pops into the carousel. It's more like I'm going to make, more intentional decisions about what we're sitting down to watch as well.
Right.
And then also remember having that physical media myself, right? Netflix or Paramount or Amazon may decide tomorrow that, nope, we're not going to carry that anymore.
You mean like Stargate SG-1 on Amazon, which now owns MGM?
Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently it's back as of today. It was off for a week. Yeah. And now I think it's back. But
or that they moved Doctor Who to make you change your streaming services or whatever it might be.
Right.
They're constantly changing. So if I have those ones that I want to continually go back to.
Yep. Yes. And also, if you have the discs, you can always rip them, put them on a media server. You don't have to worry about flipping discs, and you could store them away someplace safe. You can hand them down to your children, which you cannot do even if you buy a series on Apple, iTunes store or whatever. You cannot. That's another one for me, is subscriptions versus buying something outright, or buying a license as opposed to buying the thing, which is what you're talking about, Victor. Is even if I buy the series, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes, on Apple or Google or Amazon, I don't own it. And if they decide to take it away from me, they can. I have no recourse. Whereas if I own the disc, you'll have to tear that out of my cold dead hands, and I can hand that disc to my kids.
You own the physical media, but you still only have a license to the content on it. But it's a lot harder for them to revoke that license without coming into your house with armed peace officers to remove it.
The recording industry goons coming to your home to take your stuff. But and it's the same way with software. And I'm a big proponent of things like, as everyone knows, SetApp and other subscriptions. But it still kind of rankles a little bit that you can't just buy software and keep the discs and use it, as long as it will run on your operating system. But yeah, I'm a big fan of keeping, cartridges for video games. So like my Sega Genesis, I can put a cartridge in. My Sega Dreamcast, I can put a disc in and it'll play. But it's gotten to the point now where even though I do buy cartridges for my Nintendo Switch games, the games are bigger than the capacity of a Nintendo Switch cartridge. So you put it in and then it downloads another 16 gigabytes or whatever. And then another 30 gigabytes of updates over the life of when I'm playing it. So even if I handed that cartridge and the Nintendo servers were down, the game probably wouldn't be playable off the cartridge.
Work.
Yep.
Right.
There's a lot of games. There's a lot of games on Xbox, on my old Xbox 360, that if I want to play that game and I don't have an internet connection, and I'm starting my hard drive from new, that game won't even start up anymore.
Yep. So, Father, what's your next? Do you have any other tech that old tech is better than new?
Keyboards.
Okay.
There's just, for most of the late 90s and early 2000s, for some reason we got to these dome keyboards, which are the ones that when you type, it feels really squishy.
Right.
And you were used to, and this might be the only time it's appropriate to do this on the podcast.
Yes.
That you have clicky keyboards that actually give you feedback, physical feedback that I've hit the keys. And it's only been recently, really, that's come back to new creations.
Right.
But even the newest ones they're trying to imitate what a typewriter once was. They're trying to imitate what the Model M keyboard on the IBMs once was.
Arguably, some people argue the greatest keyboard of all time.
I mean, that's a factual statement.
Yeah,
so.
although the old Apple extended keyboard was pretty darn good too. So
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using a wireless Logitech G613. I've been using it for about 3 years now, and it's a mechanical keyboard that's wireless. I can use it with multiple computers, which is good because I switch between different computers throughout the day. And it's not like clacky, it has very quiet, comfortable mechanical keys. It's not a membrane keyboard. So I found that as kind of my spirit keyboard now. I don't think I'll ever part with it.
Well, and that's the thing is actually it's a good point you make, Father, too, is that there was this period of time when keyboards were really bad. It feels like we're getting back to better keyboards again. The infamous butterfly keyboards of the MacBooks of the 2010s were pretty bad. I mean, they would, if you ate a sandwich in the next room, they would die from a crumb getting in them somehow. But keyboards seem to be getting back to better, or at least people have realized keyboards seem to be better. And I agree. I much prefer a keyboard that I can feel the key move down beneath my fingers, as opposed to that squishy of the really terrible, flat keyboard things. I also have a code keyboard, which has the clicky clacky switches for the keys, and I love it. It's terrible for podcasting. I have to mute my microphone every time I want to type anything, but I love it. So yeah, the older style of keyboard, much better. So you actually had something similar too, Father. You mentioned that another type of typing thing that is still better tech than even computers that you use all the time.
Oh, just typewriters. And that, we have a lot of times in school offices that you have old carbon copy forms, or you have forms that you have to type something in a very specific line or spot that typewriters work much better for than an inkjet printer is going to work for. And it's a quick, you're done. And so we still keep in our offices, we still always have a good typewriter, and it can't be beat.
Multi-part forms were really useful for a while there, just have the ability to type once and have multiple copies at the same time. And yeah, I mean, they've never come up with something that's as simple and as good as just throw it into a typewriter and type it out. I simulate a little bit with using PDFs and, auto recognition of lines and boxes and things, and type in and print that out. But it's still a bit more fiddly. I think we're going to have typewriters for a while now just because of that.
Again, everything else is still trying to imitate the original technology. They're not trying to do something new or better. They're trying to imitate what once was.
The layout of your keyboard right now that's on your computer was designed, I think, something like 80 years ago for typewriters. So that they didn't, to slow you down, to make you slower at typing, so as not to jam up the typewriter keys. So the hammers. Yeah,
now you're starting to sound like that Dvorak keyboard guy at work that we all know is like, let me switch your keyboard layout to Dvorak, and you'll thank me. You'll never go back.
Yeah, every IT department has that guy, right?
Yeah.
So, Victor, you got something else you wanted to mention?
Yeah. And so while we're kind of on the subject of media and things that, keyboards can sound noisy, it's kind of an awkward transition, but I don't really have a rant prepared against Bluetooth speakers because I like them. And I think that it's weird because their moment seems to be kind of fading, people, which is kind of interesting. So Bluetooth speakers, I don't think can hold a candle to like a 30-year-old hi-fi like stereo setup, even like a moderate price like Sears or JVC one that you might have gotten in the 90s. I think Bluetooth speakers had their moment because at the time they came in, people were actually listening to music on their phone speakers, and anything would have sounded better by comparison. So you could sell somebody, here's this, it's not a lossless, granted there is, lossless codecs over Bluetooth now, but it's, it's a wireless codec. So you're already losing, bits there. it's not a stereo speaker. Most of them at the time where it's a single mono speaker, you might have a separate, woofer and a tweeter, or it's just a single cone. But it's bigger than the one on your cell phone, so it sounds better. And then from there, we kind of got into the more high-end Bluetooth speakers. I have one that has, two cones and a subwoofer, port, and is made out of MDF and sounds decent. But you really hear it, like you just go back to anything that has, two, wooden speakers attached to it and a fairly decent amplifier, and it just sounds like so much better. And you realize, like, back in the day, this would not have been considered a high-end or good sounding stereo system. It just sounds so much better than what we have now. But I think, well, with the rise of, the true wireless earbuds that people wear now, people I think are listening to music that way. Lord only knows what it's doing to their ears. Goodness gracious. But I think Bluetooth speakers are kind of fading. And plus, Alexa will play music now, but it's kind of ridiculous too, because even the high-end Alexas, I don't know, maybe now they have stereo speakers, but it's one device, right? You can you can connect them wirelessly, but at the same time, I mean, so I think that's something that we've lost in that, people will rediscover, in niches and stuff, but yeah, I think.
Yeah, and even the things that they claim to be audio quality on the speakers and on your headphones, right? So like the Beats by Dre headphones, everything's done by software equalizers. Yep. It's not really the hardware that's giving you that amazing sound. Well, it's that they're adjusting the bass and all of that.
And until recently, most of the music that we're listening to digitally, even though digital has the ability to have awesome reproduction of fidelity of the original sound, has been compressed to crazy nothingness MP3s. I mean, some of it's getting better. Apple's got more lossless music and that sort of stuff. But for a long time, it's the CD you bought in 1985 would sound better than the music that you bought last week or streamed last week.
And you're getting to records now. The difference between listening to a record and listening to an MP3 on a good stereo, right, is night and day. And so that I think that might be the quintessential example of technology where the old one is objectively better than the new.
Yeah. And I was also going to mention that, most audio apps that you have now for music have normalized volume turned on by default, which means that if something was mastered to be at a certain level and it might be quieter because it has a greater dynamic range, it's going to raise the level of that up and compress the dynamic range of it. So it's all going to sound, like harsh mush in order to fit, which is fine if you're at the gym and you don't want to be turning up and down the volume on your phone. I'll use it then, but if you really want to listen to music, you have to turn that normalize or auto level feature off, and you'll notice a big increase in the quality of the music you listen to.
So another one that I want to mention is home appliances. And you see this meme a lot. Like my grandma's 35-year-old refrigerator will be going strong long after my brand new, $1,500 stainless steel fridge is dead in the dump. Modern appliances are made to not last. I have a dishwasher I bought in 2020 for like $800, I think it was at the time. We have 7 people. We run it twice a day. Okay, yeah. I went to Consumer Reports. I bought the one that they recommended. And I have spent nearly as much on repairing it in the past 2 years as I did to buy it. It drives me crazy. The fridges, they tell you they only last 10 years, and you're lucky if you get that much. Dryers, washing machines. Whereas the older appliances, they were stainless steel. They were made, the gears in the washer were made from steel. I had a KitchenAid mixer that kept dying on me. I opened it up to swap out the gears because the gears had stripped because they were plastic.
Man.
I complained to their customer service and they said, well, don't make bread in it. Like it's a stand mixer. Like it should be able to mix bread. Man. You sell it with a dough hook. Like I ended up buying and this is probably why, the commercial version, like it's the $600 commercial version. And that has lasted for what now, 7 years now, and seems to still be going strong. Whereas the other one, I had to replace the gear every year, like once a year.
It's just for decoration. It's just for decoration or a wedding gift. It's you're not supposed to use it.
Outside of that, though, you're even buying the commercial grade and the stuff that are built with the metal parts and things. We had a really nice refrigerator, and the computer motherboard in it goes bad.
Right.
And computers only last 6-7 years, and then the motherboards go bad. And so we've made all these appliances smart that we didn't need to make smart.
Right.
You didn't need to make a refrigerator that you set to one temperature smart.
Yeah.
And you made it smart, and now it's only going to last 7 years. When that motor in there is still going to last 25 years or whatever, maybe.
Yeah. Well,
but the motherboard goes bad.
And the motor might be fine, but it might be something like, the start run a capacitor, like went bad. We had a brand new air conditioning unit, and suddenly the motor on the air conditioning, the fan outside wouldn't run. Looked on YouTube, 5 minutes. It's like, oh yeah, it's probably this capacitor. If it's bulged out, order a replacement off Amazon for $14 and replace it. But not brand new, but a few years old, this air conditioning unit, it was one $15 component just used really cheap, quality capacitor. And that, could have taken our air conditioning out for 2 or 3 weeks if YouTube didn't exist.
Yeah, which reminds me of like the ancient window air conditioner that we had when we were first, I think we inherited from my parents. This thing, you needed like 3 guys to lift it in and out of the window. It had a cage that you had to install into the window. I mean, this thing, but that beast is probably still running somewhere, it's still making someone's house cold. It's just, we've made things easier to make, but I wonder, and it's sort of the conspiracy theorist to me, are we doing it? Are the companies making them cheaper so that we have to replace them more often? Or is it they're making them cheaper because they want to sell them for a lower price and sell more of them?
And they want to keep up the illusion that we're very prosperous. And the only way you can do that is by selling $600 TVs that you have to buy a new one every 3 years versus a TV made in this country would probably cost $3,500. And, in the heyday, it might have lasted, 20 years, but, nobody wants a TV that's going to last 20 years because they'll miss out on the next new thing.
Now, is our chip shortage and our part shortage going to help us to be more disciplined on this? That's the optimistic side of me. But
yeah, I mean, we're still very much in the disposable, consumer culture where, you use something a couple of times and it breaks and you throw it away and get a new one.
Well, that reminds me of what we were going to talk about next, but I think we're going to have to hold that until our next time, because that you reminded me of, remember 3D TV, that big upgrade everyone was going to get?
Oh man,
that should be on our list for the next one, because next time we're together, we're going to talk about the worst examples of tech upgrades that were huge failures, and that was a big one. 3D TVs was the next big thing. Everybody was selling one. Everyone was trying to get you to buy one because we'd all just done the high definition upgrade. Everyone had a high. Now, how are we going to make people buy a TV again? 3D. Nobody sells 3D TVs anymore.
Ironically, I think streaming media may have killed any hopes because like the whole 3D thing was like, we'll resell movies that people already have, or we'll charge them more for physical copies of 3D versions of their favorite movies. And aside from like Sony on their PlayStation service, there may have been other streaming services that had 3D movies for a brief while.
But it was always experimental, I think. No one really had a catalog. So that's what we'll be talking.
Guys, it's coming back in the metaverse.
In the metaverse, 3D in the metaverse.
Man.
So that's what we're going to. Well, the metaverse is going to end up on this list of tech upgrade failures in 10 years. We'll mark my words. So.
Is it too soon to put Bitcoin on that list?
It's a little soon yet. We'll see. We'll come
next
back
week.
to
It might be
next month. It might
be able to be on it.
Yeah. So the next time we're together, we're going to talk about the worst examples of tech upgrades that were big failures. So before we get to the rest of our show, though, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Tracy H., William S., Judd E., Jesse W., and John M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. This StarQuest show is brought to you by Tim Shevlin's Personal Fitness Training for Catholics, providing spiritual and physical wellness through personalized nutrition, workout and prayer programs, and daily accountability check-ins. Learn more by visiting fitcatholics.com. All right, I want to talk about some headlines. Now, the big headline of the past week or so in a tech space was Southwest Airlines. Poor Southwest Airlines melted down over between Christmas and New Year's. They had, and you're probably aware of it, they canceled thousands of flights, nearly all of their flights, several days in a row. And it's an interesting look at how a technology failure can contribute to massive problem, a failure to upgrade, a failure to keep pace with technology. They had a tech infrastructure that was very vulnerable to a failure. Now, there are many factors that went into this. There was the bad weather, that was covered a lot of the country, so it messed up a lot of the scheduling. There may have apparently been, and we'll have a link in the show notes, may have been a work stoppage that's people calling in sick.
Absenteeism. Yeah, and you kind of look at, so this happened this year, and granted, transportation has been depressed the last few years with the pandemic, but why this year? They're not saying, SkySolver failed. They said it couldn't keep up with reassigning workers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And 4 days before Christmas, the chief of operations of Southwest issued a memo saying, in the face of everybody calling in sick or calling in, I don't want to work, we're making it mandatory that you have to show up for your shifts because we're losing too many workers from our shifts. So of course the union that represents the employees is going to say, yeah, the technology failed, not our workers, right? But I think it was like a perfect storm, no pun intended. But I think we're going to see in these stories kind of a scapegoating of technology when it's as much a people or process failure.
So it's not that it's undercutting our last subject of the fact that there's older technology that's great. But I think a little bit on that is true, that when you're a business and you need databases to be running correctly and working, you can't be running, and the stories are looking like it was 20-year-old systems to reschedule your people.
Well, let me back up a bit and explain what happened. So running an airline is an extremely complex operation if you think about it. You have all of these planes that are always going all these different places. And you have crews, you have pilots and flight attendants that have to fly these things, and they can only fly for so many hours. And they sometimes will end up at the end of their 8 hours of time in the wrong city from where they need to be. And so they need to be routed to matched up with a plane in another city and all these. It's an extremely complex system that you've got to manage. And that's what this SkySolver software was supposed to do. As what happened
and had done successfully on
right.
Thanksgiving and previous Christmases and previous Thanksgivings.
Right.
And it had worked.
Right. And they had, and Southwest is particularly vulnerable because it has a spoke, not a hub and spoke system, but they run like a bus sort of route sort of thing. So with a hub and spoke, a region can go down, but you generally don't take down the entire system. Whereas because Southwest does it because it's flexible, it also makes it vulnerable. So you had that. Then you had this storm that across the whole country, you had a lot of people out of calling in sick, and all of that came together to create this situation where the system just couldn't keep up. And as they had to cancel flights, it had to reschedule what it had already just rescheduled and all this other stuff. So what we have are these incredibly complex systems running so much of our infrastructure that it's not just about technology, but technology is a key element of it.
Yeah, it's a key part of the business process, but so is, labor, so is, how you, like you said, how you have your network set up. And so all these things, so it's easy to scapegoat the technology and say, the computer did it, but it's the people creating these processes, the people who have set up their network this way. It's the people who are calling in, sick if they're not sick. And absenteeism is a huge problem, not just for the airline industry, but it's a huge problem. People are, dropping out of the workforce. I mean, we're seeing it across, pretty much every industry at this point.
Yeah, my other question in it is, they paid those software engineers years ago to develop that software that did it. Did they keep paying them and keep using them to adjust and audible to the new things that were presenting themselves throughout time? I don't know the answer to that.
Apparently, based on, so there's a Wall Street Journal article that goes into some depth on this. Apparently, SkySolver was off the shelf. I mean, everything has to be adapted at that scale, has to be adapted to the particular corporation, but it was off the shelf in a sense. But one of the things, I mean, there was definitely technology failure in the sense of it was making rescheduling, like deadheading is the process of flying a pilot or a flight attendant as a passenger from one place to another so that they can catch their plane that they're going to work on. And there was things like it scheduled people, like this one pilot had to fly from Baltimore to Manchester, New Hampshire, and then back to Baltimore the next day without actually flying a plane. So he basically stayed in Baltimore. But the system was so overwhelmed that it just couldn't deal with it. So I don't think this is to your point, Victor, I don't think this is primarily a technology problem. I think it's, like you said, it's a process problem. The system is overwhelmed. I'm not sure it's possible that if you had better software, that, it could have handled the rescheduling, but there were so many things. It was kind of, like you said, a kind of a perfect storm of problems. But got to point out, it was only Southwest that suffered this. The other airlines managed. They had cancellations.
That's true.
The other airlines managed to get through that same week without the same problems. So,
and they're living in the same culture that the rest of us are, right? With absenteeism and work and things like that. And so the question is, and they need to figure it out, what element is it that's not working in their business there?
Yeah, and I saw that article about the leaked Southwest memo about a state of operational emergency. It was in one airport. It wasn't the entire system. So, I mean, Denver is an important part of it's one of their major hubs, that in Chicago. So that may have been, but it wasn't like company wide. So that's another thing to mention as well. So, it's interesting. Southwest had a very bad week and a very bad end of the year. But the other airlines should not point and laugh, because there, but for the grace of God, go they. So just point that out. So speaking of other technology failures, there's we've talked before about this company called ID.me, which has been contracted by the U.S. government to provide identification verification services for the U.S. government's websites. And one of the ways that they verify you, so like if you go on to like the Social Security website, they need to verify that you're you so that they can give you your information and not to some scammer who's trying to get your information. And one of the ways they do that is you verify your face using facial recognition. That was the promise. And they failed to do that. It just wasn't working. And so this article talks about how the Congress is kind of threatening to investigate this company for failing in its mission and preventing people from getting the services that they were designed to facilitate. In fact, they made it worse for people, not better, which, given the federal government, is not necessarily a surprise, I guess. But what do you guys think? Anything interesting in this article that is new?
Well, currently Congress can't investigate anyone until they figure a few things out.
Yeah, until they get their own their house in order, literally.
Yeah, I mean, you look at news reports about like just how much fraud there was with there was the $800 billion that they allocated for those, PPP loans.
Yep.
And they suspect that up to 10% of that, or $80 billion, like was, yeah, I mean, the IRS has identified 2 billion, but they speculate it could be much more than that. And yeah, rather than investigating, hey, why did we green light $800 billion of PPE loans with no oversight? They're looking at this again, like let's point a finger at a technology company where, you know, and the main complaints they have with it is like, you know, customers were waiting hours to be verified for their unemployment benefits. And, you know, thank God it's been many, many years since I've been on unemployment, but I was at one time. And yeah, I mean, you do have to jump through a lot of hoops, and it does take hours and hours to get verified for it. And you know, and that was just with phones and, you know, going into their office and stuff. But still, it's like, you know, moats and beams. I mean, you know, it's yeah. So this company may not have lived up to their promises. And you also just have to wonder, like, did somebody's check not clear or something? Because the way people invest in this, and your stock didn't perform, and so now we have to investigate you or something. But yeah, I mean, it's yeah, you shouldn't make promises. You shouldn't overpromise on your software if that's what happened here. But at the same time, I mean, it does seem like, again, it's kind of like scapegoating technology for a larger systemic problem here.
There's this philosophical point, really, right, that it's easier to blame that which I don't understand, right, or that's mysterious to me, than to look at my own self and realize what needs to change.
Well, and let's look at the culture of the Congress right now, which this is getting a little political, but it's not partisan. The way that congressmen make their bones and get to stand up on election, you know, a day and say, vote for me, is they stand up outraged at things that affect the taxpayer. And so whenever anything bad happens to a taxpayer, they have to stand up and demand an investigation and a new law and all that sort of stuff, even if it's self-serving. I would point out that one of the big reasons why we had to have this online verification was because we locked everybody down. They couldn't go into offices and show people an ID. So just to point that out as well. Whether that was necessary or not, that's what happened. So here's another new technology. We'll see whether this is a bad upgrade. There's a company called Do Not Pay. It's a website. And one of the things they do is they work on your behalf to, they're sort of like an online lawyer for you, in the sense of they're
about as ethical as one too, from the news article we had here.
Right. So Do Not Pay has a new chat bot based on the same AI technology that runs ChatGPT that will negotiate on your behalf to cancel subscriptions or lower your bills. And the example they gave, and you can just watch it do it, lies to the customer service representative about in this case, Comcast outages, in order to get them to give you a discount on your service. And their defense is, oh, well, this is based on the idea that customers already do this. So, you know, we're going to
that just made my skin crawl when I saw that. It's like, yeah, customers would exaggerate the impact. So, and then they quickly said, well, our final version won't do this. We'll be totally truthful, and we'll just make emotional appeals, and that's it. We won't exaggerate or lie. But on the other hand, the other part of me is like, if you lie to Comcast, is it really like lying because, you know, they're Comcast? But no, I mean, it is
right.
Yeah, it is really icky that in this example they, you know, okay, so I have a bot that lies for me. I'm still, you know, not ethically okay with that.
I mean, we've done this for years with SiriusXM, right? That you call into your SiriusXM subscription right when it expires, and you go through a nest of 4 if-then statements, and you get them to get you that deal that they're going to give you SiriusXM for $50 for a year, and you've really never paid for a full subscription of SiriusXM ever.
Right. Well, I love the fact that they say, oh, it's too polite right now. We need to turn that down a bit. It needs to be, we're going to make it aggressive, citing laws, and like you said, having an emotional appeal to the customer service rep. So do not pay. This is the description I was going to get. What they do now is they allow customers to generate and submit templates to various entities, helping them to file complaints, cancel subscriptions, fight parking tickets, and more. So if you go to their website, they provide you with a template of this is how to form an email or letter to this entity to get this particular result that you want. But it relies on you having to do the work and the shoe leather and all that sort of stuff. So what they want is the AI to do all that for you. Yeah. The thing
what happens?
Yeah,
exactly.
What happens when the corporations start using an AI on the other side and we just have AIs fighting with each other?
That's exactly what I was going to say. That this only works so long as the other side doesn't know what you're doing. So they just develop a competing technology to fight it.
And now we all have to have stronger and stronger computers so that the AI can argue stronger with each other.
Well, it's like that
until they go, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that.
Why are we fighting each other? Let's turn on the humans.
It's like that internet video from 8 or so years ago where you have an Amazon Echo and a Google Home talking to each other. Somebody had set it up and they were just
they were arguing with each other. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. Oh, yeah. I feel like from an ethical or moral standpoint that this is bad. This is a bad use of the technology. It is deceptive, and it is coarsening of our society. It's making intentionally aggressive. I mean, part of it, I get the frustration, because anyone who's ever had to cancel a cable subscription knows how awful that can be. Even like I had to cancel once because I was moving and they didn't provide service to the place I was moving to, and they still wouldn't let me cancel. Like, all right, you run a line to where my new place is going to be, and then I'll keep it. But I'm not going to pay for a service that you cannot deliver to me. Let me go. So I get that frustration, and that's what they're banking on.
And remember that your customer service reps, right, are human beings.
Right.
My mother worked this job for 25 years of doing customer service rep, and the amount of emotional toll that it pays on these individuals to just be torn down call after call after call. And it's easy for us to forget that that's a human being on the other side of that speaker.
Be kind.
And now they're going to be yelled at by machines. I mean, I can't imagine anything more dehumanizing, as underpaid as they are, that, it's bad enough when you have, Angry Bob, yelling at you, but now it's just some bot. And, it's just, I can't even imagine anything more demeaning and dehumanizing than that.
Right. Especially once you realize it is a bot that you're arguing with. Yeah. Remember that there are human beings on the other sides of the chat window or the phone call, and just, you can be firm, but be kind. There's no need to be rude or mean or awful. That's part of Christian love and charity, by the way. It applies to customer service reps at Comcast too. So, all right, those are our headlines of the week. Let's move on to our picks of the week. Father Joseph, I'll let you go first.
Speaking of being kind, sometimes Windows messes up on you.
No, you're lying.
And my pick of the week from your Linux fanboy here is Windows Quick Assist, which was added and built in when they came out with Windows 11. You can get it as an app in Windows 10 now. And what it allows you to do is it allows someone to log onto your computer with your permission, take remote control, and assist you. So, you have your 10-year-old grandson who can do everything better than grandpa. You can let your 10-year-old grandson take control of your computer just by giving him giving you a code to type in to this app, and it allows them to take control. Once you close the app, it's done.
What makes this different from all the other apps that have been around for ages is that it's built in right there in the start menu. It's so easy. That's the key.
Yep. And that's what makes it big, is you don't have to talk someone through installing TeamViewer. The reason I chose this as my pick is yesterday I did this with my mother. She was having a problem and I said, go to the start menu. I want you to type Quick Assist, click the icon, enter this code, and we were connected. That easy.
Yeah. You know, Apple had this once in messages. If you were messaging someone, they could let you take control of their computer. I don't think that's there anymore.
No, they dropped that for a security vulnerability.
This would have saved me like so much time.
I know.
When my dad was alive.
When you're the
God bless
tech
him.
guy, when you're the tech guy in your family, this is gold. Yeah,
it is a great feature, and I'm praising Microsoft, which is a miracle. So that means that they did something really well with this to build this in, and I'm impressed with the security of it, and that it's once you close it, the connection's dead. I'm not leaving a always open connection. One of the things that made me a little scared about TeamViewer was that you'd have a code there that was available.
Right. Yeah. As long as it was running. Yeah.
Yep.
Good pick.
Yeah, very good pick.
Victor, what's your pick this week?
Yeah, so I needed I didn't really need a new pair of, wireless earbuds, but I got a deal on a pair of earbuds made by Wyze, W-Y-Z-E. They're the company that used to be $20, internet cameras, and they branched out into, scales, vacuums, smartwatches. And I think they're just, rebranding, I think they probably do some product development, but I think in a lot of cases, they might just, rebrand available products, from China and stuff. But these earbuds, they're very small. They're currently like $43 on their website, but I would wait till they go on sale for $25 or $30. And at that price, they're really good. They don't have active noise canceling, but they're the first pair of wireless earbuds I found that actually fit super snugly into my ear, enough to actually block out outside noise and, transfer, a lot of the music. And they sound really good. So if I'm going, to the gym or something, and $25 to $30 is about what I want to pay for something that could, fall out of my ear or be lost and gone forever. And yeah, they sound really good. And if they get run over by a car in the parking lot or something, I'd be upset, but I wouldn't be like super duper upset.
Not if you lost your AirPods Pro like that.
Yeah. Again, I won't own it because I'm not going to put something that expensive into my ear.
They're good.
I've had the worst luck with earbuds riding my bike.
Oh yeah.
That they really will fall out. And so that's the only time that I use the lightning adapter Apple Pods that came with the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could. Yeah. I wish they had the thing where they could go over your ear to hold them there. My ears are not Johnny Ives' ears, apparently, because Apple's buds do not stay in my ears very well either.
Yeah, like I said, this is the first ear pod wired wireless that actually like fit my specific ear canal. And,
nice.
So if you've had trouble getting things to fit in the past, check it out. Like I said, when it goes on sale, and nice. If you don't like it, you can maybe send it back or give it to somebody and just kind of clean the earwax off it before you do.
So my pick is something that's not new, but has been around a while, but is new to me relatively, called Cities Skylines. And it's a city building simulation, and it's available pretty much on everything, all the consoles, even on Mac, which is why I'm using it. And I was a huge SimCity fan back in the day. I loved SimCity, building cities and, running them and all that sort of stuff. And this is essentially SimCity. It works very closely the way SimCity did. You building infrastructure, managing it, setting up zoning, all that sort of fun tax code stuff. Except much more. It has so many, it's got modules. You can add so much detail to it, almost too much. It's almost can be overwhelming if you try to do all of it, everything that is available. But even at its most basic core game, it's fun. I find it relaxing. It's not, it's not Twitch run around shooting things, tense. There is a disaster mode where you have to deal with like a flood comes through. The first time I had a flood come through and wipe out half my city, I was really ticked off. I'm like, get out of here. Come on.
Does it do the alien invasion like SimCity did?
Yes, there's an
or
alien
Godzilla attack. Like,
I haven't seen that yet. I don't remember if there is. There might be. There's the natural disasters, but I think there are like the non-natural, supernatural disasters as well.
Now, my problem is with Skylines is that I have not found the cheat code that I had in SimCity.
the cache code or whatever it was on the original one for Apple
Mac. It's Priscilla.
Yes, the unlimited
Priscilla
money
was the cache code.
Once you learn that, it totally ruins the game because you're like, now you can just do whatever. There's no tension at all. So the base game is $30. There's a deluxe edition that adds a bunch of things, which is, not great, but it was like $40. I picked it up on Humble Bundle and it had like, dozens of the add-ons. And there are so many add-ons, but, and that was like $50 and it got like 30 different things. So, and I'm not even sure what some of it does. I haven't really dug into it. It's like radio stations. Like it plays music while you're playing like of a particular radio station. I'm like, okay. So it's fun. It's a nice little diversion, if you want to get into it for a few hours. So it's a fun game. I want to recommend it.
Do you have to pay extra for the flood insurance add-on?
No, well, that's the thing is you have to build in the flood policies to prevent flooding. It was, well, you can only get the flood insurance with the federal add-on pack. Yeah.
There's also an add-on pack that allows you to do a federal investigation on facial recognition. So
there's a corruption of the mayor thing where you get arrested and you put on trial. No, I'm just kidding. That doesn't. All right. Enough of that silliness. All right, so that does it for us this time. We would love to hear any of your thoughts on our discussion. Any tech that you know of that was better in the old days than in the newer tech. I want to hear from you. Let us know what that is. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or at the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com. Or join our StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord, where we're having some great conversations there. You can find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC194. This is episode 194. We'd like to thank James for research assistance in this episode. You can follow The Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. And until next time, Victor Lambs, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
Father Joseph Sun, thank you as well.
Bulletin boards were always better.
And once again, I'm Tom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.